Well, hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about another common question that I get, and that is, how do I get my teenager to listen? Now, when this comes up with parents, the parents that I work with, typically it's one of two different angles, if you will. First of all, it's trying to get the child to listen when you ask them to do something. You ask them to help around the house, take out the trash, something like that. But then the second one is when they won't listen to your good advice. You're trying to share some wisdom with them and they just won't listen or take in that advice. And actually, that's the angle we're going to talk about a little bit today. So let's get started. Well, hello everyone. My name is Jim White, and I'm an author, coach, and the founder of the Family Enrichment Academy. And today we're talking about how to get your teenager to listen to your good advice. But before we jump into that, I want to let you know that I also have a free resource for you today. A lot of times I get a question about how do I get my teenager to open up and talk more and to help build that connection. And what I would throw out is the best way to do that is you have to learn to ask better questions. And so this free resource, what I have for you are 10 questions you should never ask your teenager. Think of these as like conversation killers. They're the ones that kind of shut them down a little bit. But then I've also got 10 great questions. These are the conversation starters, the ones that get them to open up a little bit. So anyway, it's a free resource. There's a link below. Click the link. You can share your email and we'll shoot that right over to you. And I think you might be amazed. You start asking and using these questions today, you'll have a new teenager by tomorrow and have some great conversations. So anyway, back to our topic for today. We're going to be talking about getting your teenager to listen to your good advice. And specifically today, we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of friend groups. Sometimes you maybe aren't real comfortable or don't like the friends that your teenager's hanging around with, or it could be a boyfriend or girlfriend that maybe you're not real thrilled about. And so again, you try to offer advice on them about that relationship and they aren't listening. So today we're going to talk about two elements that really can maybe help move this forward. First is the idea of experiential learning. And this is just an important component to this. And then the second piece is around creating a North Star for your teenager, something, a point of reference, if you will. So let's dive in. Let's first talk a little bit about the idea of experiential learning. So let's set this up. Let's say for this particular scenario that we're going to talk about today, we're talking about a bad friend group. When I say that, this is a group of friends that you're just not real thrilled with regards to your teenager hanging out with them. And you've said that to them. You've said, these guys are bad influences. You've even said, you can't go out with them. But again, your teenager's not listening, which goes back to the original question is how do I get my teenager to listen? And in this case, it's to your good advice, because you can just tell that this is a group it's just not going into a good place. So this is a classic example of that distinction between trying to control versus trying to empower your teenager. And this is a big struggle for parents. And so again, part of what we teach here at the Family Enrichment Academy is the idea of making that shift from control to empowerment. And so that would be the first thing I'd have you kind of put into your mind. And then with that, to help you to get there, I'd like to also introduce this idea of experiential learning. And what that is the idea of experiential learning is that you have to experience something for yourself in order to fully appreciate it or get it for yourself. A lot of times I like to use the analogy of learning to ride a bike. I mean, I can tell somebody how to ride a bike and teach them, show them the different aspects to riding a bike, but they really don't know how to do it until they get on it and ride it for themselves. And so with this friend group, your child and your teenager is just going to have to go through the experience and discover for themselves how this group is bad for them, or maybe doesn't support them and is a bad influence for them. And I know that's tough as a parent, but again, for your teen to go through this and experience it for themselves and be able to make a decision to move away from that group on their own is just a great learning lesson for them. And your role in this is, again, to be more of a coach or to support them and empower them through that process. And I would encourage you to focus on them and their behavior and not on the friend group. Again, if you start to challenge and say things about the friends, the teen will probably come to the defense of those friends. But you can focus your coaching on them. If they're doing something that maybe that seems out of character, for example, you can just say, I've noticed you acting in a way that doesn't seem like who you normally are. Are you okay? So again, focus on them and kind of point out any discrepancies, and then let them process through why is it they're acting differently, and they can connect the dot to this potential friend group. So the first step is this idea of experiential learning, and then letting your child go through that so that they can make the decision on their own and come to the realization on their own that maybe this group of friends is not the best for them. So anyway, that's step number one. We'll talk a little bit here about creating a North Star, how that can be very powerful as well, in step number two. So now we're going to talk about creating a North Star for your teenager. And what I mean by that is creating a frame of reference, or a point of reference, if you will, for your teenager to compare their relationship with these new friends that you're struggling with. And how we do that is the home is the center of this. And so the goal, and this goes to a lot of different areas, but if you can create a home environment that's respectful, that where there's the family supports each other, there's a sense of peace, joy, and love within the home, this becomes the point of reference that your teenager is going to use to compare any relationships that they have, especially this one with this bad friend group. And so your first goal in this process is to really focus in on your home and making that home environment as loving and as peaceful and as joyful as possible. Because what will happen then, your teen, when they're out with this friend group that maybe you're struggling with a little bit, let's say the friend group starts to do something disrespectful, or they're talking disrespectful about other people, other classmates. Your teen will recognize that, and will recognize it as being different than what they experience at home. And again, it creates a point of reference. That's why I like to call it a North Star. It gives them something to compare to. And my guess is, and what happens, and what I've seen happen within our home, is they become uncomfortable in that other situation. And sometimes they can't even put it into words, but they just recognize that, this is different, this feels uncomfortable compared to what I'm used to. And so by creating that North Star in your home, you give your teens something to take with them. They take that with them when they go out, and it gives them a point of reference to compare whatever's going on. So anyway, that's the first piece. And again, that's a lot of what we within the Family Enrichment Academy, we coach and work with families on how do you do that. And there's a lot of steps and a lot more than we can cover in this video, but I just want to introduce that idea that by creating that North Star, you can go a long way to helping your teen it's that experiential learning, to have a point of reference and help them to make a better decision, which is what you're trying to do. When you say they're not listening, you're wanting them to make a better decision. And this point, that home base, can be a great way to help them to make that better decision. So anyway, think about that, and let's continue to work to build some peace, joy, and love into your home. So let's recap. So we're talking about getting your teenager to listen. In this case, we're talking specifically about getting them to listen to your good advice around maybe a friend group or a boyfriend or girlfriend. And the couple of things that I threw out today was the idea of experiential learning, and this idea that they're going to have to go through the experience of making that decision. And that's really good for them to do that. And your role is to support and coach them as they go through it. And then the second thing I threw out was this idea of creating a North Star, or having your home be a point of reference for them. And again, this helps them to make that better decision. So hope you found some value in those couple of ideas today, and help to move you along. So again, before we sign off today, I wanted to remind everybody that I have those 10 questions you should never ask your teenager, and then those 10 great questions as a free resource that you can get by clicking that link below. As always, it's truly an honor and a privilege to be able to serve you as you move along your parenting journey. And remember, until next time, a change in perspective changes everything.